Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. You got a turkey tail there, Bruce. That's my dad
Oh
would say.
yeah, oh yeah. I got
Did you
those.
fire your hairdresser, your hair and makeup?
No, I can answer that definitively.
All right. It was a good time for me to tell you just when the podcast started.
Mm. I got it earlier and it just came back. Oh well.
Oh, okay. There you go. It's one of those ones.
We're not
Uh,
here for our looks.
yes, that is a fact. All right. Bruce, the Oilers lose 3-2 in overtime to the Detroit Red Wings
Gee, that's
in
quick.
I thought, terrible game from the Oilers. Um, what did you think?
I thought they were like flying in the first 10 to 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Detroit started to push back, and Edmonton couldn't handle their speed. Was the feeling I got. Detroit had it really going on with the speed and I mean, it was a wide open game. Great goaltending in this game by both netminders,
Uh-huh.
and I think you just sort of have to take the point and move on. I don't think they really earned both points.
Okay. Did I do the introduction, Bruce? I was so distracted by your turkey tail. I can't remember if I did it or not.
No idea.
Do you remember if I did it?
Better do it again just in case we missed it.
Right. I can't remember. I think I did it. Let's just leave it. All right. I'll do it again. Just in case if you can enjoy it the second time in case I did it the first time. I think I did it. But let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples and I'm here with Bruce McCurdy. I think I did it. But anyway, Bruce, let's do our two good things, two bad things in podcasts. It's a big night in the McCurdy household, I understand. So let's get her done. Why is it a big night in the McCurdy household?
Yeah, my brother is flying in from Newfoundland, where he's lived basically his entire life, and where I lived until I was 15, and so we're pretty close. Other than he's a Leafs fan, and I'm a former Leafs fan. I went my way in 1979 when both my teams wound up in the same league. I had to pick one.
Same with me and the Habs, Bruce.
I
Same
had
with me
season
and the
tickets to
Habs.
the Oilers, and Harold Ballard voted against the Oilers getting into the NHL twice.
Ooh,
So
such
it
a
was not a
jerk.
hard decision to make. Old weird Harold
The Jerry Jones of hockey
easy
owners. Yeah.
easy to dump. Yeah, yeah. I still like some of their players, Sittler, McDonald, Salming. But anyway, uh, it was an easy choice to pick the Oilers. But he had no reason to make. I mean, he's lived in Newfoundland the whole time. He's stuck with the same team his whole life. So
They were a fun team under Roger Nielsen and one of the most memorable playoff series of my young life that I recall was the Toronto Maple Leafs beating the New York Islanders, I think in '78, if I'm not mistaken.
Lanny McDonald overtime game 7.
It was such an exciting series and
Yeah.
a great win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. One of the biggest moments since they have won a Stanley Cup in '67.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a bigger
Still.
moment actually than that series since '67. Maybe. Um, Bruce, let's get into your good thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to default to Stu Skinner, who I thought was terrific in this game as the team in front of him sort of lost their way defensively. And they got bombarded with, well, Oilers outshot Detroit 47-35,
Hmm.
which sounds like, the Oilers were doing the bombarding, but 35 shots against is a lot for this team that's been pretty consistent, averaging around 27, 26 per game, and a lot of games that come in around that total. And tonight, as the game went along, it went from 7 shots in the uh, first period to 13 in the second to 9 in the third to 6 in the 5-minute overtime. shots on net were 6-5 Detroit in overtime. Like there was lots going on. Oilers had to kill a penalty in there, but I just thought there was a number of individual high quality saves from the netminder, and to me, he's the main reason Edmonton came away with that 1 point.
Yeah.
And he didn't get a hell of a lot of goal support, and he hasn't been getting a lot of goal support in his recent starts for the most part. Oilers score, for whatever reason, recently way more with Pickard in net than with Skinner. And I mean, to put a number on it, last 11 games, 4 for Pickard, 19 goals by the Oilers, 7 for Skinner, 17 goals by the Oilers. And this team should score 3 goals in its sleep. Never could get that third one tonight, eh? I got the 2 early, and then
There was one great save in the third. They showed an overhead view of it. Larkin made there was a rebound shot, and Larkin put it at net.
around him.
In a lot of ways, Stu got it because he's so big. His legs were just splayed out to the side in the butterfly, and it hit his foot. And then as he was moving his foot, it was a fantastic save. And then he made another really similar one short time after that. He won them. He got them that point, Bruce. And it's a big point in the scope of things because it keeps them 1 point ahead of Vegas. So they've played the same amount of games now. And Edmonton has 68 points and Vegas has 67.
Did Vegas not play tonight?
I don't know about that, but I'm just looking at the standings.
I don't know, maybe they lost. No, they're still playing. It's 1-1 in the third, late in the third period against Columbus.
Oh, so that may change.
So Oilers need Columbus to do what Detroit did.
The grade A shots in this game, Bruce, were 25 for the Oilers, 21 for Detroit, and the 5 alarm shots were 9-7.
That's all, eh?
For the Oilers. So lots of grade A shots, and yeah, I thought Skinner was, fantastic. He just had a great game, and
Alex Lyon had a star for Detroit. Well, all you can do as a goalie when the other goalie's hot is match him.
Yeah.
And I thought Skinner largely did that. I mean, if you want to pick apart the 2 goals that went in on him, I don't know. I mean, he stopped Lucas Raymond on one breakaway, and then about 2 minutes later, Dylan Larkin got a breakaway. And I mean, what's going on here? And the other one was just a right out of the air deflection from about 2 feet in front of him. That's one of those Californians, eh? Outside
it was, yeah.
Perfect tip.
Yeah. Bruce, my good thing is the other Skinner, Jeff Skinner. And he scored a nice goal, and he made a super defensive play, and I'll describe a little bit both of those in a little bit more detail in a second. I just want to see grade A's. Yeah, he was in on 3 grade A shots, and he made not one major mistake on a grade A shot against. So that's a pretty good evening for any player. The goal was a very, very nice goal. Kicked off again by that Darnell Nurse stretch pass, king of the stretch passes this year, Bruce. He leads the defenseman in stretch passes, leading to grade A shots at even strength. And there's not many in the power play, so overall he does as well. So he's been just heads up, moving that puck with aplomb, and he fired it up the ice. I think it hit. I think Hyman put it to Skinner. Skinner takes it over the blue line. He puts it back to Hyman, who gets it on, kind of lashes it on, puts it on net, and then Henrique goes in and gets the first shot. Hyman barges in, gets the second shot, and the puck then squirts loose to Skinner, who goes to the net, puts it in. A great goal from Jeff Skinner. Go to the net, get a goal. Great play.
Yeah, all 3 forwards had a shot from like within 10 feet, within maybe 2 to 3 seconds of one another.
Yeah.
And Hyman's rebound, Lyon just barely got a piece of that to keep it out, but he couldn't control the second rebound. And that's what Skinner, and he just kind of scuffed it in, eh? Like he didn't exactly rip it into the net, but he just got enough of it to I know I was saying it's in when it was still like a foot out because it was clear nobody was going to be able to stop it. It had just enough on it to get there, and get there it did.
He's got to score if he's going to stay in the lineup, and he's got to defend as well, and not make mistakes in his own zone. He's been the weakest forward on defense, weakest winger, I should say, on defense. And tonight, though, he was solid on defense, and he made one fantastic play. Um, I think Bouchard was caught up the ice on this one.
Yes.
2-on-1. I know that because many people were commenting. I posted a little
Okay.
video of it, and a lot of people were saying, "What was Bouchard doing?" Anyway, Skinner hustled back hard and lifted the stick, won the puck, and brought it back in the other direction, all in one big swoop. So it was an excellent hustle play on defense from Jeff Skinner. He can be on the Oilers playoff roster, Bruce. I think it will only be as a third liner, though. I don't think he can play on the fourth line. I think they're going to need some energy, some hitting players, some fast, aggressive hitting players there. And so if he's going to earn a spot, and it's very much in doubt whether that's going to happen. Like I would bet against it at this point. He has got to like shut it down on defense, and he's got to make the most of his opportunities. His points per 60 at even strength is actually pretty good among Oiler forwards. I think it's in the top 5. So, but his defense hasn't been there. So he's going to have to keep putting up the points and do what he did tonight.
Yeah, he had a pretty fine game, and that one play in particular, and he knew he was in the spotlight. He saw Bush get beat just outside the Detroit blue line, and he just put his head down and thought, I got to, sooner I can stop this 2-on-1, the better. And he basically messed it up. What, when they hit the Edmonton blue line? Certainly not when they got very close to the net.
Just above the circles, yeah.
That was because he was hustling hard and paying attention to detail. And you could almost see the thought bubble above his head. I need to make this play. I got to make plays like this. He needs to score. Now he's scored in 2 games in a row. And he needs to show that he's not a liability on defense. And with big plays like that, that'll get the coach's attention, and it should.
It's hard to reconstruct yourself as an NHL player. Evidently, I've never been an NHL player, but from watching many, you don't see NHL players often suddenly improve their defensive game at the age of 30, especially top scoring players like Skinner. But it happens now and then. I'm going to suggest it happened with Tyson Barrie on the Oilers, that in the first year and a half or so with the Oilers, Tyson Barrie was really weak on defense. And he was playing kind of a high risk game, and it cost him. And it was going to cost him his spot, but he really focused towards his end of his career with the Oilers on defensive play, and he started to make much better decisions, particularly at the offensive blue line, in terms of pinching or not. So we've seen it in the past with a player like Tyson Barrie, offensive player, offensive defenseman, who's turned his defensive game around. Skinner must do that. If he's going to have an NHL career beyond this year, frankly, I mean, let's say, it's kind of early to speculate because much can change for Jeff Skinner as this year still goes on. But just this year, if he's got to get it in his head to play sound, aggressive, fundamental, staying on the right side of his check, make sure he's back on the back check. All those things he might not have thought about so much, he's got to start to excel at. And it can happen if he puts his mind to it. He's a smart hockey player. You can see he reads the game fairly well. But he'll be playing on the third line this year, and if he's going to make this team, that's where he was tonight, and he took a step towards doing that tonight.
Yeah, agreed. I'd be shocked if he's not in the lineup next game, which is, that's been the razor's edge he's been playing with for, he's been playing under the sword of Damocles, every game.
Yeah.
He could just as easily be out next game. And I mean, last game he played, he scored. He was still out next game. Well, tonight he scored and made a great defensive play. At a potentially a key moment because that was the third period,
Third
right?
period,
2-2.
game tied. Yeah, good point.
And
Bruce,
so,
what is your bad thing?
yeah, I'm going to go with the Oilers. This one shift in the middle of the third period, sort of the middle, and kind of extended deep into the second half of the third period because the damn shift was so long. This was Edmonton's first unit getting absolutely owned by Detroit. It's the sort of thing that our first unit usually does to the other guys, where they pin them in their own end and they do the cycle and stuff. Well, for these uh, one lengthy shift, uh, the numbers 2 minutes and 39 seconds for Bouchard, 2 minutes and 45 seconds for Ekholm, 2 minutes and 18 seconds for Hyman, 1 minute and 44 seconds for Nuge. He was the fresh one, and 2 minutes and 23 seconds for Connor McDavid. And McDavid in particular, I'm not sure he ever caught his breath after that. Because I thought for the last part of the game, he was poor in overtime, very poor. And it was, very unlike him. But, sometimes I've seen other games where they have these long, long shifts and they watch the players afterwards. And sometimes they just, it takes something out of them.
Maybe they're sick
And
right now. Ekholm's got a cold, I heard.
yeah,
Maybe a bunch of them are sick.
well,
They kind of look like it,
they
honestly.
iced the puck 3 times on that
Yeah.
shift. That's Edmonton's top unit and one of the dominant units in the National Hockey League. Iced the puck 3 times. I couldn't make a pass. I couldn't win a puck battle. And Skinner bailed them out. I don't know how many of the 5 alarm shots they got in that time. All I know is that Detroit had the puck and Edmonton was chasing. And after a while, they weren't chasing very fast because they had nothing in the tank. And it was just so frustrating to watch. And often during a game, I might sort of sardonically yell "change" after a bad shift, but I don't usually do it to the Oilers' #1 unit. But it sure happened tonight. Man, oh man, it just went on, and like I say, there was some, I think, lingering after effects from it potentially. Whatever went sideways, they
Yeah,
they
they
had a
didn't.
lot of juice in the tank after.
Yeah. Bruce, the truth is, in the second half of this game, they didn't have much juice in the tank at all. In fact, in the third period, I was thinking, like, do they want to win this game? And it's kind of a strange thing to say when a team musters 25 grade A shots in a game. That works out to what? Like about 6 goals, right? Like you'd expect about 6 goals off of that. But the truth of the matter is the Oilers, it was a tale of two games. The first half of the game when the Oilers got up 2-0, they were pretty good. And they had for instance, they had 14 grade A shots. The opposition had 3. So the Oilers were dominant, getting the 2-0 lead halfway into the second period. But the second that Detroit scored on that weird kind of tip Californian play, um, the Oilers just they got outplayed the rest of the game. And from then on in, Bruce, the grade A shots were 18-11 for Detroit. So Detroit was clearly the better game as it went along, and I wonder if there is some illness on the team because they really didn't look like they had it as a group, and particularly their top players. They just didn't seem like they were pressing. Like usually in the third period, the Oilers get serious now, and they win the game. They
Yeah,
they they go after it, and their
yeah,
big players are so sharp and so effective. But as the game went along, it seemed like they got less sharp and less effective,
yeah. I
which is
agree.
unusual. So can't say what had happened. We also saw tonight the debut of John Klingberg, Bruce,
Hmm.
and he was involved. He made some nice passes, but he was an adventure on defense and leaked grade A shots against. I'm not going to make much of it because I think just his comeback to the NHL and being in the game, getting back in the NHL, it's a huge step forward for him. It's a big moment for him. He didn't have a particularly good game. He looked really rusty on defense on his defensive reads. That said, Bruce, I thought his skating looked fantastic. he looked like he was moving really well and quite fast, very agile, and a beautiful skater. So I think that was a kind of an encouraging game, even though the performance wasn't there. The tools were, the passing sense and the skating was there. Now I don't know about John Klingberg as a defender. We'll see. He doesn't have the
Yeah,
greatest reputation, mainly from recent years, but we'll see. But I think I had a good.
never did. I
I
don't
I
think as a
saw.
defender.
Yeah, I had a good sense of him as skating and moving the puck. What did you think of his play?
Uh, I was just sort of in and out, like in terms of grabbing my attention. A lot of times he didn't. He was just sort of looking like a guy doing the easy thing with the puck, which is really kind of what you want to see some of the time. But defensively, a little bit of an adventure on a couple of those plays. And Detroit guys kept getting behind Edmonton defenders, and I think he was one of them.
He was definitely one of them. Yeah, he was. Yeah,
Not the only one.
he anyway, he had a rough night on defense. Bruce, let's move on to our numeros. What's your number?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my new favorite expected goals, just because this shows what this game was really like. And this is the second time this has happened lately. This is a 2-2 game, right? Tight checking defensive playoff style game. Ha ha. Yeah. About that. Expected goals for Edmonton 5.7,
Yeah,
for Detroit 4.4.
yeah, that's about
So
right, eh?
both goalies were fantastic,
Yeah, they were.
letting in fewer than half as many goals as you might expect. Like, even though, Edmonton was slightly the better team, I'll still make the case that Stu stole the point by saving 2.4 goals above expected. And mind you, probably some of those came in overtime when he didn't steal the second point because of the shootout. But, throughout this game, there was a lot of quality shots on both teams. And a subset to that is that Oilers' inability to score. Draisaitl, he had 1.6 expected goals and he got a goal.
Yeah.
Hyman had 1.5. He couldn't find it. McDavid had 0.6, and then a whole bunch of guys, 0.4, 0.4 for Skinner, Nugent Hopkins, Bouchard, Arvidsson, Henrique. None of those guys could find the range other than Skinner, Jeff. And just not making their shots, or again, credit or due, Alex Lyon. He's had a few good games against Edmonton now, and he finally won this one. He lost last year, Oilers, I think it was last year, Oilers beat him 2-1 in overtime. And anyway, he's full value for the win, but both teams kind of left defense as an optional in this game, and the goalies were on their own a little bit at both ends of the sheet.
16 shots at net for Leon Draisaitl. Wow.
Yeah, 10 on goal, 5 that were missed the target, and 1 that was blocked. 13 for Bouchard, 8 on goal, 5 that were blocked.
Let me just see here how many of Leon's were grade A shots. 6. So we would have had his expected goals around higher than if he gets 6 grade A shots. You'd expect him, and 10 shots. We'd expect him to get two goals. One of them, it would take a little bit to do that, Bruce. But
Yeah, no
let me
worries.
just. Well, his he had 2 on the power play that were 5 alarms. And let me just see.
Yeah, they sure were.
Yeah, he had at even strength 1, 2. So he had 4 or 5 alarm shots.
Okay, well, he should have got about 1.7 goals by our form, and he got 1.
Well,
What
yeah,
a
and
shot,
then,
too.
yeah.
Oh. That was quite the goal, eh? Looked like the Detroit guy was going to cuff the puck down the ice, and the puck hopped over his stick, and wham! It was instantly in the net. It's like, you screwed up, pal. Just an instant feedback loop. You missed your clearing attempt, you pay for it.
He had 2 5 alarm shots in overtime. So
Yeah.
he almost won it there.
Well, by
Bruce,
our
mine,
formula, I'm just working out 6.2 expected goals for Edmonton and 4.9 or 5 for Detroit, right in there. So very close to what Natural Stat Trick had.
yeah,
This by right should have been a 6-5 game, not a 2-2.
yeah. Bruce, my number is well, it's three numbers. In the Oilers have on average given up 11.8 grade A shots per game, which is about similar to last year. In two out of the last three games against middling teams, they've played three middling teams: Buffalo, Seattle, and Detroit. They shut down Seattle pretty good, but against Buffalo, Bruce, a team that usually gives up, let's say, 12 grade A shots a game, gave up 27. And a team that usually gives up 12 grade A shots, the Oilers again, gave up 21 versus Detroit.
Yeah.
We, I'm going to suggest that the Oilers are in a little bit of cruise control here, heading towards the break, heading towards the time off. And their defense is right now loose, and it's no good. They're just they're not getting it done. They're not bearing down, and I think they've got visions of mojitos. Is that a drink in Mexico on their right now in their on their minds, maybe, as opposed to buckling down and winning the last few games. Either that, or they're sick, or they're just it's
Well,
just a long season, and you're going to have stretches like this. But they're not playing well defensively.
I said to my son at one point tonight, we have to keep in mind this is game 51 of 82. And for a player like Connor McDavid, as a for instance, this year is all about the playoffs, getting to the playoffs, and then raising the bar there. And it was it looked like game 51 on a Thursday night against Detroit,
Sure did.
interconference game, and they just kind of, yeah, it was not a defensive masterpiece. There was lots of action. Like people who went to the game can't complain that they didn't get entertained. There was plenty of action, and Oilers did have several chances to win the game, and they just couldn't beat the guy.
A mojito is a Cuban cocktail made with rum, lime, juice, sugar, mint, and club soda.
Oh,
There you go.
Cuban,
Uh,
eh?
yeah. Bruce, before we depart, you wanted to talk a little bit about the Oilers team of this century. I would have picked one other player than was
Okay,
picked.
well, we can talk about that.
I what about you? Did you like the
Well,
picks?
let's start with who they did pick. Two teams, and this is for the 25-year period from January 1st, 2000 to December 31st, 2024. So it's actually not quite the quarter century by my math, but I'm at 2001 to 2100 is the
Let's
century
not go there,
guy.
Bruce. Let's not
So
go there.
anyway, they've decided this, and all we can do is say, well, the NHL makes their own rules, and we just have to play along with them. So for those 25 years, so the stats stopped on New Year's Eve. So don't have
Okay.
players that are still growing their stats. And 5 of the 6 guys on the first team are current members of the Edmonton Oilers. And in fact, all were drafted by the Oilers, all in the first round, all in the top 10 of the draft. No surprises up front to see Connor McDavid at center. They got Leon Draisaitl listed as left wing, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as right wing or forward. They're all shown as just forwards.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on the back end, the generally non-pairing, but long-term teammates Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse.
Okay.
And so 5 guys off of this team, the entire leadership group, and Bouch.
Okay.
And the only guy that's an oldie from the first team was an oldie all the time he was here, Dwayne Rollison, first team quarter century goal. And good on you, Rolly. I heard him interviewed on Stopper's show this afternoon, by the
Yeah.
way. And he had some good stuff, very nice things to say about Stu Skinner, including the excellent observation that this guy is only 26, and anybody who's judging that what they're seeing now is the finished product is as good as he's ever got is out of their mind. that Dwayne Rolson, didn't become a full-time NHL goalie until he was 31. And he had a lot of good years after that. He said, I was learning the whole time. He learned from Hasek. He learned from some pretty good netminders that he backed up over the years. So anyway, good on you, Dwayne Rolson. Very fond memories of that player. And good on you, 5 current Oilers. And I heard some arguments about who should or shouldn't be there, but talk about
Who
that
was
in a
on the
second.
second team?
Second team's all oldies, except for one. Now we got one modern Oiler, Matthias Ekholm, and good on you to get there in parts of 3 seasons. But he's played so well since he's been here that he inveigled his way onto the team with his partner Jason Smith, Gator, longtime captain of the Oilers, including the '06 team. Tommy Sallow, second team netminder, who was already ensconced when the century began by their math, or my math. He kept playing until about 2004. And the forward line, it was the intact group that played together during '06 and for other years. Sean Horkoff between Ryan Smith and Al Shemsky. And what's not to love about that line? Fond memories of all of those guys.
Yeah.
And so there, those are the choices, and there were a couple of sort of glaring omissions, and a couple where at least some folks thought didn't deserve to be on the team. But who do you have that isn't there?
Okay, there's 2 ways to do this. You can go like over the career, like a career value, or you can
Yep.
go maximum value,
Peak value.
peak value. And there's no doubt about it. If you're going peak value, Chris Pronger belongs on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, in his 1 year at the Oilers,
Yep.
he led the Oilers to the Stanley Cup final within 1 game of winning it. He was, in my view, let's not have an argument here. There was 2 key players on that team, Dwayne Rolofsson and Chris Pronger. They were both outstanding. They were both integral to a team that was a team of hardworking grinders with some talent, getting to the Stanley Cup final and almost winning it. Chris Pronger was out of this world good that year. There has not been this century a better performance by an Oilers defenseman in a single season than Chris Pronger that year. I'm going to include Evan Bouchard last year, and Evan Bouchard was really, really good. But I think Chris Pronger was better as a two-way player and just a physical force on the team. He had a bigger impact on the game. So I would have excuse me, I would have recognized that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have put value in career accomplishment, but the NHL is all about winning the Stanley Cup, and I would have focused on the guys. No one did it on either team, but there's guys who really pushed the team to getting close. So I would have had Ekholm on the team because he was huge last year, and Bouchard, and so the question is Nurse or Jason Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to think about that. I might go with Jason Smith because he was really big that year in the playoffs and almost winning the cup. And he had really good years, a lot of really good years, as has Darnell Nurse.
Yep.
But Darnell Nurse has yet to do it in the playoffs. He's yet to have a good playoffs, is the honest truth, the hard truth. He's been their Oilers' best defenseman in the last 3 months, but he's yet to have a good playoffs, I think, due to injury mainly. Maybe 1 year in like a short series, he's been okay, as you say. Like I'm not going to like those short earlier series, but he wasn't. He was kind of a marginal. Like he was the third pairing guy in 2017, and then the year when they had the big series against the Flames, he was hurt then, and he was not playing well. The Vegas series, he didn't play well against Vegas, losing that year, and then last year his game collapsed. So I think I'd go with Jason Smith and Chris Pronger as my second pairing, or Chris Pronger maybe even bump him up to the top, because I just think it's all about winning the cup, and
he didn't.
He didn't. You're right, Bruce.
Go away. They've been there twice this quarter century, and they hurt like hell both times. And everybody on these 2 teams, but one guy who played on one of those teams or the other.
Yeah.
Only
And I
Tommy
so
Salo that didn't.
yeah, so he didn't. You're right, and no one has. But I give points
Oh,
to the players who have really taken the Oilers
oh,
to make close calls. So I would go with Pronger and Bouchard
mhm,
as my top pairing.
yeah. Pronger for me, you know, he played 1 year. Like this team, I mean, it's kind of a lifetime achievement award to some extent, I would think.
Yeah.
And he played 1 year, and then he asked to be traded. So I mean, if Oiler at heart, I don't know. Like they brought him in, got a year out of him, and he left. And it was a good year. He's a really good player. And he certainly helped make that team a contender, no doubt. On the other hand, the guys that they picked, some of them, Darnell Nurse has been a prime example. 10 years so far, and uh, over the 25 years, number one by far in games played, goals, assists, points, even strength points, shorthanded points, game-winning goals, overtime goals. Like all across the board. He's played and played and played and put up you know numbers in the among the better defenders in the league throughout extended period of time. And to me, it's more. Can you do more in 1 year than you can in 10? Well, maybe you can, but I'm thinking if I'm thinking about who was the Edmonton Oilers in this 25-year span. Chris Pronger was briefly, but Darnell Nurse has been one of the faces of the team for a long time now. And it's it's not
Yeah.
just about how good were they at their very best. Like I get the Bill James argument, peak value versus career
Hmm.
value, and the very greatest of the great have both. And Chris Pronger certainly had a great career, but he only had a little fraction of it here, 5% or whatever of it was as an Oiler. So,
It a lot of people will hold it against Pronger that he asked out, and I think that's really fair and probably relevant to this discussion. It's a good argument against him, so I can see why people would make it and have that thought. Bruce, when's the next game?
CFP. Yeah, the next game is Saturday night. Well, late Saturday afternoon, 5 p.m.
Okay,
And the early time slot of Hockey Night in Canada against Toronto Maple Leafs. And you know what? My brother that flew is flying out here tonight. He's coming specifically to watch that game. It's his 75th birthday present from
sweet.
his family. So he's getting to 2 for 1. Not only does he get to see his Leafs play, he gets to see McDavid and
Oh,
Draisaitl
you're
and the
going? Is that
boys.
here? That's
I'm
here in
not
Edmonton.
going, no,
Is that
but
game in Edmonton?
it is here. Yeah, it's a home
Oh,
game.
that's
It's
great.
the last
That's
game of the
great.
homestand. So,
Excellent.
and then they got a little bit of a crazy trip, quick trip next week. Four
Are
games
you
left before the break.
four? Not many.
Yeah,
Are you looking forward to the Four Nations tournament, Bruce?
sort of. It's a big break in the action, and it'll certainly be a change of pace. I dare say I'll get more excited about the games as they come up to happen. But I mean, what does it mean really? Like, if you win the Four Nations Cup or lose it, like, do you go down in history as one of the great teams? Or, I mean, hopefully we'll get such a great games that we'll have something memorable out of it. But to me, it's kind of like I don't know, the Rendezvous '87 or Challenge Cup 1979, sort of a one-off between world-class teams to be sure, but I'm not sure they'll have enough time together that we'll see them anywhere close to their uh, capacity. So,
That is a good point. Um, I've been waiting a long time to
yeah,
see
you and me both.
Connor McDavid play for Team Canada, Bruce. A long
Young
freaking
Stars
time.
didn't cut it.
It did not come close. My favorite memories of hockey, and I think the biggest moments of hockey, are Team Canada moments, not even Edmonton Oilers moments. So I I love these tournaments, and I think I'm going to get into it. But I like when you mentioned Rendezvous '87, I just remembered, oh, did that happen? I think that's a good point, Bruce. So probably years from now, it might be
Mm-hmm.
that, did that happen? Oh, they played the Four Nations tournament. But so I almost wish they just called it the World Cup and had six teams, like, figured out a way to actually have it like the old World Cups used to have six teams, as I recall. and just
Canada
expanded
Cups
it.
did, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Canada
Yeah,
Cups.
yeah, and it basically is the same tourney.
Yeah, just expanded it and figured out a way to make it a World Cup. And then it would be significant because some of those World Cup wins were significant. Like all those Canada Cup 87, 84, 81 for the Russians, 76. Those were huge and memorable tournaments. All they had to do was expand this a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
include Czechia, I guess.
I think
And I don't know
so,
who
yeah.
would have been the fifth team. You would have had to go by the international, like maybe Germany. I don't know who would it have been, the sixth team.
Well,
Right.
Russia would be the obvious choice, but here we are.
Here we
And
are with Russia.
yeah,
These political things
so
occur, and you can't have some teams sometimes. So I would have liked that to have it that kind of tournament, but not to be. I think I'll like it. I'm looking forward to it, and so let's
I
leave it
heard
there.
Ron McLean talking about the 76 Canada Cup today, and he said, and I truly fully believe this, that of the 21 roster players, 16 are in the Hall of Fame for Team Canada.
Is that all? I would have thought even more. But I think there was
16
a
out of
couple
21 is a pretty good.
Flyers on that team that didn't weren't
Yeah,
really
Joe Watson. Yeah, I mean,
Joe Watson. Okay, that's the guy I
fine,
was thinking of.
fine player,
Is
but
Reg Leach? Was he on that team and is he in the Hall of Fame? I
yes,
don't
he
think
was. Yeah,
Reg.
the whole Flyers line of Clark Beach and Barber was,
Yeah,
and the
Sittler was on that team. McDonald
Sittler,
was
McDonald, and Gainey. That was one
Dion. Yeah.
fantastic line.
Was Bobby
Yeah,
Hull on that team? Bobby Hull
yes, he
was on that
was.
team.
Yes, he
Thank
was.
goodness.
Yeah,
And man, that was a huge loss. Bobby Hull and Bobby Orr in 72.
yes.
And self-inflicted, Canadian inflicted. That one was Bruce. Um,
Good old
well,
Hockey Canada,
NHL and Hockey Canada inflicted.
or what it was called at the time.
Yeah. Kept Bobby
Canadian
Hull.
Amateur Hockey Association, wasn't it? Or it was,
Yeah.
anyway, because it was NHL players, it was a hodgepodge of people who all wanted to run the show.
Yeah.
It's like
They
one
should
of
have
those
put
shows you see on TV, when the FBI comes in and tries to take over from the local cops. Power struggle ensues.
I don't know who was it that banned Bobby Hull, which I think I know it was the NHL that didn't want him in there. I'm not sure exactly who in the
He
NHL,
signed
but
with the enemy. He was persona non grata.
indeed. Such is life, Bruce. This is the way of
Mm,
the world. It's not a perfect place. All right, Bruce.
definitely not.
It is probably wouldn't I wouldn't fit in if it was. All right. Bruce, thanks for talking tonight.
Right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.